Good evening. Welcome to the February 2nd meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. My name is Maggie Sharon, and I call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. This open meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. I wonder if we'll have a party on the anniversary of that date. Information on how to join remote school committee meetings and meeting agendas is posted on the Dover-Sherborn District website. Please note, this meeting is being recorded. Be aware that anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We're going to begin with the first item on the agenda tonight is public comment. Community comments are an opportunity for members of our community to be heard. We respectfully request that you make your comments brief and that you move the discussion forward by adding new information. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. For community comments, please virtually raise your hand and wait to be called on. When you speak, please begin by stating your name and whether you live in Dover, Sherborn, Boston, or a member of our faculty. Community comments are an opportunity for the school committee to listen to members of our community. It's not a forum for answering questions or engaging in a debate. Once the public comment section of our meeting has concluded, we'll move on to our other business, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. This is standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across three of our three school districts. And just as past practice has been for this meeting, we're going to keep community comments to about 15 minutes, although it looks like we don't have a gigantic crowd this evening, so that should probably not be a problem. Do I have, and just if you can just use the raise hand feature, or if you unmute your screen, if you would like to make a community comment. Yep, Ms. Nessarella, thank you.
Hi Maggie, thanks. I know this isn't the whole group that debated this superintendent search issue yesterday, and I'm not asking for any information. I'm just making a comment. And my lighting is messed up. My comment is that after that meeting, I was unclear about what the specific steps are going to be to get more information about the candidates. And I'm concerned that all the candidates be treated equitably. And so I don't know how the whole 15-person joint committees will go about getting more information. It seems concerning. I'm concerned about the integrity of the process, despite everyone's best efforts. And so I understand that time is of the essence, but I also urge the committees to not rush and to keep all avenues open.
Thank you so much. And what I'll do is pass your feedback on to the whole superintendent search team and have them see whether or not it might be appropriate to put some kind of communication out to the community about where we're at.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, I think we're good. Moving on to our agenda. I know our next item is our superintendent report. Dr. Keogh?
He was having technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry.
He was going to hop off. He was going to hop off and try to reboot. He didn't have any sound.
Right. Oh, goodness. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I did notice that the screens were moving and I just didn't realize he was the one that disappeared. Do you feel like we're okay to go on with the warrant report and the financial report? Or do we feel, is that all right? All right, and then we'll just, when he gets back on, we'll just cut to that chase.
Sure, that's great. So the warrant report, you just have the warrants that have been processed since your last meeting. Again, they're always available at central office, and Ian, whenever you have a chance, if you want to take a visit by, we're happy to have a folder for you to sign.
Great.
Any questions? Yeah.
No. It looks like we have Dr. Keogh back in the house. Sorry, I apologize.
No problem. It was on my end. For some reason, I couldn't hear anything, so we're back.
Are you good now?
I am good.
All right. So we're up to superintendent's report. Do you need a minute or are you okay to go?
No, I'm fine. I don't really have a lot to report other than what I wrote. The only thing I would mention is that on the pool testing, we had someone attend a webinar last week to get more detail about the state's expectations around participation rates And we want to proceed a little further by putting out a consent form. That's really where we would have more of an official count and we would know whether we're in the range. We also expect that that the number will grow as people see others taking part in it. So my comments there are a little dated. That's about it.
I mean, the only question that I would have about it, and it's like just a genuine question, is some of the folks who have talked to me are fearful that doing the testing will cause more knowledge of infection and that would cause in school less. Whereas other people are worried because as we try to start to have conversations about, or, you know, ongoing conversations about getting the middle schoolers and the high schoolers in more, other people who've talked about it say that they're worried if we don't do the pool testing, it's going to make it harder to add those days to the schedules of the middle schoolers and ultimately the high schoolers. Do you have any thoughts on that, or just we don't know yet?
I don't think we should link the pool testing directly to our return. I just think of it, as Matt has often said, as another layer of a safety action or step that we're taking, and coupled with vaccinations for faculty at least, that puts us that much closer to being able to expand reopening. But the expansion of reopening, as I mentioned in my comments, is it is not a simple flip of the switch. It just isn't. And I know that there, you know, people don't necessarily understand how complicated it is. We cleared out all of our furniture from every classroom and replaced it with just desks, essentially, student desks at 5.5 feet apart. That means all the lounge furniture, all the innovative furniture, all the teachers' desks, all the file cabinets, bookcases, those have all been stored in the rooms that we were not using. And now we would need those classrooms. So we have to grapple with that. And it's much more complicated. And that's just one piece of it. There's obviously the lunchroom that only holds 60 students and it is shared by maybe 1,200 or 1,100, or at least 1,000. And then the issues of transportation. So we're still a ways off on that.
Okay. And I mean, it's like a Rubik's Cube, not even like the normal kind, like the 4 kind. It's hard. You guys have been really, really working on it. Do other people have comments or questions about superintendent report? Yeah, Kate?
I just had a question about, I know Dr. Keogh, you mentioned 699 people completed the survey, but I'm not a strong math student. So I was wondering what percentage of people that was, is it worth asking again? I know people are not always great to responding to surveys.
Yeah, well, so we talked about that and ultimately decided that in order to continue with the process, you have to do the consent form. Mm-hmm. It's another opportunity for people to learn more about it and to see if they think it's worthwhile. What we don't think is the model is to try and shoot strictly for that 70 to 80%. We think if we could get in the 60% range, that the other 10% will follow along the way. Mm-hmm. So that's what the guidance was from the state. So that was new news for us. So that's why we're moving forward with ordering the kits and with putting together the consent forms and putting those out to people soon. And also we're going to need to hire someone certainly at the region to conduct this. This is a pretty complicated task.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Dr. Keogh's report? All right. Dawn. Wait, am I correct? Am I in order here? Okay.
Yes. So now we'll jump to your monthly report. And so what I've been doing for all 3 school committees in order to carry forward the narrative, because it's so helpful to have a running report versus having to remember what I told you previous months. I've started in bold putting the new information that I've added so that you can see the changes. One of the new things I changed in revenue was that we're still awaiting our first transportation payment. That will answer some questions for us. There's been a lot of discussion at the state. We're pretty sure we're going to get 85%, but until we have the check in hand, you just don't quite know. So I thought we'd have it by now, but as of today, it still has not come in. So I've added early February there as to when we're expecting that information. And if you remember, we have a CD that we carry, and we always get our 6-month interest payment in December. So now that has been, that interest from July to December has been booked, along with our estimate of what we think the remainder is. So that's why you're going to see some activity in the interest income account, which we're showing now a positive variance of at least 8,000. It'll actually grow a little bit because what that doesn't reflect is just a normal monthly interest that we get on all of our accounts that we don't encumber. So that number you'll see creep up as the year goes on. On expenditures, the only thing I changed is now I have taken a little bit of a closer look at our utilities and made some initial encumbrances. I will say this is a harder one to not only project for this year, but also project for next year, because we've lost sort of our nice schedule where we can sort of look at the previous year activity and project it for current year, because we've had such a crazy year where we were shut down from March until basically September. The summer we didn't have the normal activities that we do at the school where we would potentially run the air conditioning. But looking at where we were in fiscal year 19 as far as usage, and looking where we are now, I feel comfortable that the numbers we have will, even with a little bit of increase, it's hard to actually estimate how much of the increase in heating we're going to have by sort of keeping our windows open more and forcing ourselves to produce a little more heat. I've only had 1 month of really a heating bill so far, so that's where we could see some fluctuations. But I think right now the encumbrances that we have are based on our best data to date. I think that we'll go from there. Remember, we always have a little safety net currently with electricity based on the way that we don't take into account our net metering credits. And so that's always a little bit of a $20,000 to $25,000 buffer for us. So because of that, that's typically why I don't play around with the budget too much, because I know we have that buffer, and at some point we probably should account for it. The other thing is that we are set, hopefully, I'm still waiting though to get the first draft of the statements, to have our auditors and our new treasurer, John, join us on February 23rd to present you your fiscal year 20 audited financial statements.
Fantastic. He's has everyone been able to meet him, or just because you and I interviewed him?
Just the 2 of you that interviewed. So this will be sort of his introduction. So he's excited. He'll join us by Zoom, obviously. So he looks forward to when he can meet everyone in person, but he's all slated. And he, myself, and the auditor will probably have a pre-conference just to bring John up to speed, since this will be the first time that he'll participate in this presentation to you guys.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. Appreciate all your help. Is there anything that you see in terms of like the, I mean, just looking at the numbers, in terms of the differentials, besides the possibility that heating with the windows open is not super efficient? Is there anything that you see as this horizon builds that you're concerned about?
No, I think there's only positive things to take into account. Remember that we didn't, we're down on our overtime just because of the way we've been operating. All of our summer help that we typically have in custodial and IT, all that is going to be saving. So I feel like we're going to be in a really good situation. And what has really helped us, and I've said this before, is just the CARES funding. Because it's allowed us not to have to dip into your general fund operating budget to cover everything we needed to get us where we are right now.
Are there questions from members? Anne?
Thanks. So, sorry, that just came from what you were saying, Dawn. Didn't you foresee that we'll have an increased expense when this is over, and like deferred maintenance or projects that have had to be put off or anything?
No, we've actually been able to continue on with that. Wednesdays have been a huge help. It actually sort of probably focuses us a little bit more and gets things done quicker because we have to make sure we are scheduling people. They don't have the wide open window. So I will say every Wednesday right now is pretty busy for us. We've got about 3 different contractors on campus tomorrow. And so in a way, we're getting more done because I think we have time to sit back and see what really needs to be done, because Wednesdays, again, we a lot of times we'll take a walk around and figure out what we need to do. So we're actually checking off our list some things that have been dangling. And so I feel really good that this has actually been one of those other silver linings, that we have a chance to catch our breath midweek when all my staff is there from the custodial standpoint, and do some of this work that we normally wouldn't be able to do if we had students in. So we're trying to make the best of the situation. So I feel pretty good. I think we're going to be in good shape.
Any other questions? All right. I did have a chance to see you, well, not you personally, but the crane installing the new air conditioners from when the tornado happened, or whatnot, whatever thing that
Yeah.
was. But not
Yeah. So back in
really
December, we did
dramatic.
it. Yeah, we had a microburst done, and once I don't have all the numbers yet, but I'll put it in one of your reports. It is an insurance claim that we have filed, and the insurance inspector who came was actually an engineer, so he'd never seen anything like it. So continuing the streak of Dover-Sherborn being one of a kind, we had a one of a kind microburst that basically took huge pieces of equipment and turned them on their side.
Well, it's good to be able to get new equipment to replace that. So that's
Right. Some of them we were able to replace with brand new equipment. So that was good.
Thank you so much. All right. So the next item on our agenda is to do I think we're done, is to do the review from the policy subcommittee of the first read of the harassment policy and harassment investigation procedures. This will happen for each of the local committees, and then we'll come together in a future joint school committee to do the second read and hopefully to approve it. Before I turn it over, I just want to say a huge thank you to Lynn Tony Collins, to Sarah Gutierrez Dunn from the Dover School Committee, and to Angie Johnson from the Sherborn School Committee. This is a really heavy lift. It was an important policy to revise because it brings us in line with, I believe, current law and federal guidelines, and it was no small feat. So Lynn, do you want to share anything about this before folks ask questions?
Yeah, I can just walk through briefly what's
That'd be awesome.
happening. Yeah, so, and I'd like to thank Beth for raising this as a need. Certainly this sort of, Beth observed in the course of working on aid initiatives, our AIDE program, that we do need something in place to formally address harassment, hate incidents. And so in the course of looking at ways that we could update policy and address these things, I realized that MASC, Mass Association of School Committees, has updated its model harassment policy. So took advantage of that and basically modeled our new policy on the updated MASC policy. The interesting thing about the MASC policy is that they essentially merged 2 existing policies. But in the course of doing that, they took out staff. So for reasons that I tried to get to the bottom of with MASC, but I don't think they were following me when I was asking the question, their new model harassment policy only addresses student harassment among students, so harassment of and by students. So, and harassment of adults, by adults of students. But there was for some reason they've eliminated references to harassment of staff by staff. So what I've done is incorporated staff back into the policy because it didn't make any sense at all that we would eliminate a policy governing staff. So it's maintaining the status quo as far as we're concerned because our original policy covered staff. So so the policy, so basically it differs from the MASC version, as I indicated, that it includes staff, and we've added specifically hate incidences, which is particularly relevant for us given that we have experienced that, and it very much benefits us to have a policy that specifically addresses it. So in adding that language, I used the legal definitions, the legal requirements. So there's no discretionary really language in there. It just reflects our existing legal obligations around addressing hate incidences. And then in connection with the policy, obviously we have obligations to investigate harassment incidents. I don't know why I'm having a hard time with that word. And so because we have such a robust investigation procedure in connection with the bullying intervention plan that we just implemented in 2019, these investigation procedures are basically a repetition of those bullying investigation procedures, with the obvious exception of bullying specific requirements under there. So for example, in the bullying policy, there's reference to, a DESE problem resolution program that they have, which we're not required in the harassment context. And there's obligations to teach appropriate behaviors that are specific to bullying. So I've eliminated those. And annual reporting requirement under the bullying policy, I've eliminated that as well. And then these harassment procedures include Title IX requirements as applied to sexual harassment specifically. For example, the Title IX requirements require the appointment of a Title IX coordinator. And it lays out very specific due process rights. So those are the ways that our harassment policy, harassment investigation procedures differ from our existing bullying procedures. And so together we've got a program that certainly the AIDE group can work to develop more specific protocols around, how to specifically, respond to hate incidents. I'm going to stop saying that word, to hate. It just gives us a roadmap to work with moving forward. And I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Thank you. That is enormously comprehensive. Questions from members? Judy, you have your hand up. Yep.
First of all, thanks very much to Lynn and Angie and Sarah. The policy is really well written. I really, and it's really great. My question is this, because I remember when I'm on the middle school council, advisory council, and when we're doing the student handbook, there were references to a harassment policy, and it was students. So my question is, where will this policy appear? That is, will it appear in the student handbooks? And is there a place where it will appear where faculty will have access so they'll be able to see it and know what to do if they need to file a complaint, for example?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, and it could very well be why MASC had limited the policy to students, because it does need to be in the student handbook.
It looks like Beth did you have a hand up for talking about that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to kind of watch the screen.
No, thank you. It'll live in a number of places, including on your policy website. But as you know, we want to breathe life into it should we ever need to reference it. So we will make it part of the annual training that we do with all educators in August and on their first day back to school. And thanks to all of our creative thinking at the last joint school committee meeting, we now have an aid website that is underway, and there is a page dedicated just towards policies and programs and support. So we're hoping that that'll become a place where families and educators and students can go to get a variety of information and resources, including policies and how to report an incident should there be one.
Excellent. Thank you. That sounds really comprehensive.
And I mean, you raise a fine point, and something that I struggled over for a while as to, you know, how to handle the fact that by merging their policies, they eliminated a policy that was specific, the sexual harassment policy. And so that could be something, you know, we should think about between now and the second read, is whether the way I've done it is appropriate, you know, or if we need to somehow split them out. You know, there's no pride of authorship, just whatever makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You know, as I said, what I know about is the employment aspect of this, and you did a great job combining them, but having everything in it that the model policy for the MCAD has for sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's okay. You know, but I'm just one voice here.
Yeah.
Anne has her hand up.
Sorry, just to continue with that, Judy, since you're the rep to the middle school advisory council, and whoever the rep to the high school one is as well, there may be something though that you may need to look at that and see how it's referenced in the school handbooks or school policies or wherever. They may have to change that reference back since this has changed. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'll like make a note to
What
self
reference?
to coordinate with to just let Scott know, or maybe Beth can or something.
Yeah. And I think that we have John on this call as well. So if John just can touch base with Beth, assuming this policy or some edited version of it moves forward, just to tie it out to the school handbooks in a reasonable way.
Absolutely.
Thanks, John. All right. Any other questions on this topic? All right. The only thing I want to say is, as somebody who does these investigations, having the consistency between the bullying and the harassment paperwork and investigation procedures to the extent possible is enormously, enormously helpful, so that you don't do something in the wrong order or something. So I'm just super appreciative of that effort. Thank you.
And that I thank again, Beth, for making that suggestion as well.
Yeah, thank you. Assistant principals of the world, thank you. And do we know who our Title IX coordinator is? I should probably know. I don't know. Is it you, Beth? Oh, great. It's going to add something else to your nameplate. Okay. Well, thank you. If people have additional concerns or things that they want between first read and second read, and sort of like in a parliamentary, is there anything that, should people just reach out to the policy committee directly? Or, is there anything else people should do?
I missed most of that because you
sorry.
faded out, but that's okay. They can just reach out to the policy reps from their committees.
Okay, so I know Mr. Jaffe's not with us tonight. I will direct him, if he has comments or questions, to reach out to the policy committee between now and then. Okay, fantastic.
Maggie, before you move on, we skipped over just a brief fiscal year 22 budget discussion, and I know I see warrant and advisory here, so I just wanted to.
We want to have that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, don't have a lot to say, but I know that they're probably waiting to see what's going to be said. So
they didn't. I apologize. I didn't.
That's okay. I didn't cut you fast enough, and I figured I might take a little break, so it was fine.
That's okay. Thank you. And sorry, guys, but I bet you like to know about harassment too. All right, budget discussion.
So again, we're meeting, even though we kept our budget schedule the same this year. As you know, the state and a lot of other operations are running a little bit behind. And so the budget, the governor's budget did come out last week, but with it came a lot of still questions that are still being sort of figured out. So I'm not going to present you numbers tonight, which is why you never ended up getting anything in your packet, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to start going wishy-washy all over. One of the key things with Chapter 70, just so you know, there was additional CARES funding given in so many different ways in the December 27th federal legislation. One of the CARES grants that are coming our way is Governor Baker has sort of tied it into the budget, fiscal year 22 budget a little bit, in that it's saying that you can use part of that particular CARES grant to fund the increase in the town's minimum local contribution from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 22, up to 75% of that grant can be allocated, and then it can't be any more than the town's increase in their MLC. So we're not talking huge dollars here, but each town, if the towns would like, from what then this is where I didn't want to put too much in writing, because they're all still trying to figure out how this is going to work, because this is very unique in how they're rolling this out. And as you know, we've got the governor's budget, we're going to have the House budget, we're going to have the Ways and Means, the Senate, on, and all these little things can change along the way. I think with this particular caveat, there's a huge desire by the majority of the people to set it straight now and make it carry forward to all the other various House Ways and Means, etc., so that at least that's a sound piece, because that is the grant number is not going to change. So I think that's why they're saying let's just let the method that you're offering to help the towns with their minimum local contribution stay the same. So just to give you a ballpark, there could potentially be like $100,000 that we split between Dover and Sherborn, depending on how their minimum local contribution pans out. So the accounting side of that, I'm not quite sure how they're going to have that, given that we're taking grant money and offsetting minimum local contribution. So again, something so you've heard it. Next time you hear me say it, it might make more sense. So that's why I figured I'd throw it out there now, because we're in the business world, and all my listeners, we're still trying to figure out how it's supposed to be computed, who gets to decide how it gets used. And so I will have more information for you on that, hopefully on February 23rd. And with that too, transportation for Chapter 71, I know although people were concerned that it looked like it was less funded in the budget, if you remember, transportation is always paid a year in arrears. With a lot of schools being closed last year, everyone's transportation costs were decreased, which I think is why we're seeing what it looks like a decrease in the state's budget. But when I looked at some of the numbers, it looks like right now the governor's budget is giving us 75% reimbursement. So that's the good news. So you can't necessarily, I'm not going to rest my hat on the number that they have on our cherry sheet. That's the number we usually pull, because I do think it's underestimated what we're going to potentially get next year, because it's based on our lower transportation costs from last year. And there will be a quiz afterwards on this. And so I think we're going to be okay on transportation. Again, I'll probably in the next round on February 23rd version, as we have in the past, any excess revenues that we have in the current year, whereas revenues came in higher than we estimated, we now have a pattern in that we will apply that to the next year's budget as a use of our E&D. And so as you know, we set aside an extra $200,000 in E&D in June when we were really worried about what was going to happen with the state's budget. So we do have a chunk of that left. What we will do then is apply that to fiscal year 22. So the towns are recouping that money and we're lowering their assessment. So that is another entry that hopefully will help on the revenue side. Now remember, this is all revenue stuff that doesn't actually change your operating budget. This just helps what the town's the town's assessment is. Right, so increases and decreases in your revenue, really the impact of that is on the town's assessments. On the flip side, on the expense side, really don't have any significant adjustments at this point, which is why I thought we'd wait and just do one big round. We're still waiting for our Norfolk County retirement estimated assessment for next year. And obviously the rate setting meeting for healthcare is scheduled right before your meeting. So I believe it's on the 22nd. So hope we'll have those numbers and we'll be able to present that on the 23rd. I'm hoping we're in the ballpark. Some of the estimates I've been hearing thrown around are, you know, maybe an average, or the highest we might see is like 8%. I used 8.5% in your budget. So hopefully we're definitely in the ballpark on that, but we don't know until we actually get the rates. And remember, you have 4 different plans. So each plan has a different rate. And so we have to look at the composite to really know, but also take into account, we obviously have more plans that are have higher participation than others. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have February 1st, obviously in our contract for anyone who put in for retirement is the date that they would be able to rescind. Otherwise, the retirement will go into effect. I think we have one this year that's confirmed. And so I just need to get together with the building principal and make sure what kind of person we're looking, or a level of educator that we're looking to replace that person. And then I can compute what your savings will be on that. So that should be forthcoming. So remember, on the 23rd, we'll present version 2. The following night is your joint meeting with warrant and advisory. So it'll be a busy week.
Thank you. Other questions? I'm so sorry I skipped that budget. I look at all you guys hanging on the thing. Any other questions regarding the budget update or other concerns on the FY22 budget? Okay. Dawn, just a clarifying question. We're in our contract for the health insurance through when?
So we're in our final year of the MOA that we have. So we actually, the Town of Dover and myself have been doing some preliminary discussions so that we have a plan to bring out to everybody. We thought that might be easier rather than starting and saying, what do you think we should do? So probably within the next 2 weeks, we connected with Kevin Feely. We were going to bring everyone together and have a proposal to run by everyone.
Do you need your employment benefits subcommittee for that?
Yes, you'll be the ones that'll join. Yep.
Just
Yep.
giving Judy a heads up.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you.
And remember, there's only 2 living parts of that document right now. So that's what we're looking into as to continuing those.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work on the budget. It's hard to do a budget in quicksand.
Yeah.
But you're being pretty clear. So thank you. Lynn, question.
So at what point in the process is it appropriate to talk about budget for example, the aid coalition? Because presumably it's going to require some resources for either professional development or, I don't know about the equity audit. That sounds like that's covered under a separate part of the budget, but I'm assuming it's going to generate a need for funding.
So we typically have funding set aside for professional development pieces, and that we frequently will use for any trainings for staff, even shared kind of some of those expenses when we had events in the past that were both community and staff, beneficial to both community and staff. So that money already exists in the budget. We know that there may be other expenses for speakers or community events, but the problem is that committee is not on our budget timeline. They're really, and I don't think we want to force it because it makes their their ideas seem contrived, and we want them to kind of really generate these things from the ground level up, and they may actually come at us at any given time. But we don't think that those kinds of expenses are going to crush us in the budget or, overwhelm the budget. If we were talking about a $200,000 initiative, well, that's different. But even, the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 type things that typically come up, like the speakers, or what was the name of the event that we had, Beth, a few years back?
Mr. Joy?
Yes, Mr. Joy. We spent a lot of money, but we didn't actually budget for that. We had it within our existing funds. So we're pretty confident that we're not going to get caught off guard by that. What would you say in addition to that, Dawn?
Well, I was going to say that some of that comes from gifts and DSEF based initiatives. So I think that some of that will could potentially run through that group presenting grants to DSEF. We have title grants that sort of fall into this category that could be accessible. And then the other thing that we have in the general fund is the superintendent has a $15,000 reserve that's there for when things like this come up mid-year that you don't want to have to wait till the next budget cycle, or if an emergency comes up, that's what that 15,000 is there for. So I think we have enough pockets of opportunity for funding that we don't need to increase your operating fund to cover that at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, and I do think that some of the initiatives are going to be different from what, it's going to be more than presenters, and I think it's the nature of the things that are going to get done. For example, there's a lot of curriculum work going on. Like, I don't know how that works, but if we have to buy a whole bunch of different books, it's stuff like that that's going to be a little different from what we've done in the past. But I hear what you're saying, and I sounds like there's many ways to get at that.
It's usually when we're talking about staffing that we get concerned. So if out of this process, and I don't want to prescribe what this group's going to come up with, but if out of this process, we start to feel as if we should have some kind of coordinator for our diversity work, that's something that you would need to budget for.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't mean we couldn't get it rolling, but normally you would roll something like that out at the beginning of the year. But I just think that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I don't even think we've had a conversation like that on the DSA group that I'm aware of. So I just know that other school systems have, over time, concluded that that's something that they needed. As this work, starts to take off, it becomes too cumbersome for Beth or for me or whoever's coordinating it. And so you or your METCO director, we don't have anyone who could serve in that role. So we may reach that point where we need kind of a coordinator for that, but I just don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
One more, Parla. Thank you. Thank you for the budget. Thank you for all the work that's being done to get us ready to go into the next fiscal year. Do we need to take a vote on the first read? There's no action required on that, right? Okay, sorry. I didn't think so. It didn't say action, but I just wanted to double check. I think we're up to the consent agenda, correct? Okay. So the items on the consent agenda, I'm now just scrolling a bit to catch back up, sorry. Items on the consent agenda include there we go. Include donations. DSEF has generously donated to us an additional 2 smart boards for the English department, as well as 2 water coolers with bottle filling stations. And I know those have been very appreciated for all the people who need to fill up water bottles. So thank you for all of that.
And I'll just say there were six smart boards.
Oh, 6.
Yeah.
So
The
Oh.
whole, the
Oh,
English department, yeah.
The whole English department got smart boards. Thank you. Great. That's pretty exciting. And then also in the consent agenda are the principals' reports from the middle school and the high school for your information. I believe we do have Mr. Smith here if there were any specific questions on any of the reports. Yeah, Anne.
Sorry, really quickly, the consent agenda is the minutes and the donations, and we do have to vote on that. And then the communications, we don't.
Okay. My problem is I didn't print this today. I just thought I'd go paperless, and that really was a mistake. Oh, well. All right. Let's vote on donations and minutes. Do I have any questions regarding the donations or the report of the minutes from, someone can help me here. The scrolling isn't going so well.
January 12th.
Thank you. From January 12th. Can I invite a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
And-
moved.
oh,
Oh,
you
sorry.
got Go ahead.
Okay, motion by Judy and seconded
second
by
by
Ann Hovey. If you can take yourself off mute. Kate Potter,
Potter, yes.
Judy Miller,
Judy Miller, yes?
Ann Hovey,
And have a yes.
Lynn Collins,
And Collins, yes.
and Maggie Sharon, yes. Okay. On to for members' information, principals report from the high school and the middle school. And do we have any questions from members or comments from members regarding the reports? Yep, Ann?
Sorry. And I don't know if I'm supposed to ask this. I just wanted to know, John, since you're here, thank you very much for sticking with us. In your report, you talked about the weighted, unweighted, and I just wondered if that's we're still really early in the process, sort of where that is. I thought you explained it very well. I appreciate that. I just wanted to see if there's any
Yeah.
update.
Yes, absolutely. It is certainly very early in the process. I wanted to assure the community no decisions have been made. We're not leaning in any one direction either. It's simply something that has come up with our academic standards committee over the last year and a half, because when we've been adding courses, we sometimes will say, okay, do we need to add an honors section of that so that we'll be assured that more kids will sign up for it? And what has been raised by guidance and some members of academic standards who are also classroom teachers is the real issue should be taking a deeper dive into the weighted versus unweighted discussion. And that's really all it is right now as a discussion. We would be surveying parents, surveying students. Tomorrow I'm going to discuss it really for the first time with faculty. So we are in the really early stages. Don't know if it is the best route for us to go, but I think it is an important issue for us to look at. And it's also, one of many issues that we're looking at along the lines of equity. And we need to see, is this an issue of equity that needs to be addressed, or is there a different way that we can address it and still maintain our weighted GPA?
Thank you for the clarification. I know that was a point of concern for a few folks in the community in the last week. So you heard it here. It's in the report. Thank you so much. And thank you for addressing these issues. I think it's really hard sometimes. There are things that are sort of sacred cows in high schools and communities. And whatever the decision is, I think having a healthy discussion about it is really important. And I want to say thank you for starting that discussion and for involving so many folks in the process. All right. Any other questions on the high school report? Or I know Mr. Kellett's not with us, but certainly if there are questions on the middle school report, Andrew could certainly relay them. Okay. I didn't have any specific questions, but I just wanted to say thank you to both of you, Mr. Smith, and also for Mr. Kellett. And I think Ms. Hurley is here tonight. It's really helpful to get this little view into what is going on at school. And it's really clear that despite all the challenges that each of you and your faculties have faced this year, there's a lot of really amazing learning going on at the middle school and the high school, and I'm sure also at the other schools. And thanks for taking the time to share it with us and with the community. It means a lot to folks. So thank you. All right. I think this means we are at the end of the packet. If my scrolling, yes, scrolling seems to be saying that. Any other final words or questions? I'm not sure not printing the packet is the right way to go, but it does save a lot of trees. All right. Well, with that, I would love a motion to adjourn.
So
Lynn
moved.
Collins, so moved.
Oh,
Okay,
got it. I'll
I'm
second
going
it.
to give
Lynn
I'm
Collins,
gonna give the motion to Lynn Collins to adjourn and the second to Ann Hovey. And I'm going to say, can we just adjourn by unanimous consent? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Great. And by unanimous consent, we have adjourned this meeting. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you, folks. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.